Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. I'm Bill McMinn along with Mark Hostetler, both pastors at Eagleville Bible Church. And one of the topics, the reason I'm talking about this topic is pornography. Just in case, what's your topic? Porn. That's what we're talking about today. But the reason is because I'm preaching a sermon on Sunday, and it was think about these things and think about things that are morally pure. So the moral pure part made me think about the pornography part. So I started, people are kind of caught up in that. So I started working on statistics. Now, are you guys ready for this? Here's stats. I know this is going to be like glazing over after a while. So let me just hit some of what I think are some of the main ones, basic ones. 33% of Americans seek out porn at least once a month. So that's 1 out of every 3 people. Now, if there's 1 out of every 3 people seeking porn, that means people in church that we see. Oh, yeah. Right. 57% of young adults seek out porn at least once a month. That's over half. 46% of men seek out porn at least once a month. 46. That's pushing towards half of the men in this nation are looking at porn at least once a month, which is, you should never look at it. So, once a month is even worse. 25% of search engine results are related to sex. 35% of downloads from the internet are pornographic. 40 million Americans say they regularly visit porn sites. 70% of men aged 18 to 24 visit a porn site at least once a month. Now, this was, I thought, interesting too. All right, this is 1/3 of women, or of all internet porn users are women. I would not think it would be that high.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a gender problem. You know what I mean? Like it used to be women weren't into it that much. You know what I mean? But now they used to get their fulfillment from novels, from those kinds of books. You know what I mean? Fantasy books and stuff. Well, now you're right. It's the same statistic. 1/3, no matter what, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man.
More men than women, because if 1/3 of all of it, then 2/3 are men. Right. So 1/3 is still less than what men are, but it's still more than I thought it'd be. Sunday is the most popular day of the week for viewing porn. Has church not mattered to people?
Wow.
Come on, it's the Lord's Day. It's the Lord's Day, Mark, and that's the most popular day for looking at sexual things.
It is. Bill, it's an unfortunate epidemic. You know what I'm saying? It really is an epidemic in our culture, not only our culture, the world.
Right.
It's just... Unfortunately, it's become culturally accepted, and when things become culturally accepted, it's hard to preach against. It's hard to even tell people that it's wrong. It's like, no.
But it's not
hard.
It's not.
It's not hard because we have the truth of God's word that tells us to flee from it.
Right.
It says, get away from this stuff.
I promise you would not have a hard time telling someone not to look at porn, and neither would I, and neither do
No
I.
way.
And I'm going to preach against it. But Thanksgiving, the most popular day of the year for viewing porn. Why? I don't know. Wow. I don't make it up. I don't make this stuff up. Thanksgiving Day, honestly, I thought you're supposed to be with your family. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought aren't supposed to be with your family, like watching football games and eating pumpkin pie and turkey and going to visit people. I would think you're like way too busy to be looking at porn. But the biggest day of the year, Sunday, the biggest day of the week. Yeah, a lot of this stuff. Here's one. This one really. 62% of teens and young adults report receiving a nude image from someone else via text, email, social media, or app. And all I can say, listen, I'm the old dog here on this team. I'm so glad that was not a possibility when I was a kid, because I will promise you, I would have seen something I shouldn't have been seeing from some young lady. If there was just the way they would talk to you on the phone, which was stuck to the wall, which your parents could listen to because you only had one phone in the house. Just the way they talk to you there, I can only imagine if they had the access of being able to do this kind of stuff.
Well,
and that's a lot, man.
Let me just say from experience, my personal testimony, I have had to overcome an addiction to pornography.
Okay.
And it is a battle, that whole thing there. There's just something about it that hooks you a lot deeper than you realize.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's not just mental, it's emotional. You have all your facilities kind of invested into it. And then you start compounding because you almost get addicted to the secrecy of it.
Right.
When you're trying to hide it. And then it leads into lying, being a person that's not trustworthy, because you're covering up every step you're taking. It's exhausting. It's an exhausting lifestyle,
right.
you know? And what I would say to your stat here about Sundays and Thanksgiving, and by the way, I'm having allergy issues. That's why my voice is like this. I'm sorry if it's bothering anybody here, but you know,
I don't even notice. He
right.
sounds, at least he sounds manly today. So
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Right, so Sundays and Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I would be interested in a stat on time too, like between 10 and 2 in the morning. You know what I'm saying? 10 o'clock at night, 2 in the morning.
Right.
I'll bet you that would be a big statistic right there.
Right.
Because idle time is the devil's workshop. And Thanksgiving, everybody's just come from a long line of not a day off of work probably. And now you get some time to rest, and you use that to engage in porn. Sundays, your day off.
Right.
You have time now, so you're investing in porn. You know what I'm saying? Use your time, redeem your time. Use it properly. Don't use it for that stuff.
Well, I think that right now we're just painting out that there's a problem. And so a couple things, based on what you said, obviously then if your spouse is maybe on the phone in the middle of the night or looking at the computer, they're not talking to Jake from State Farm. Probably not. And no matter what the commercial says. The other thing is, listen, young people listening, parents of young people, look, don't be taking pictures of the stuff you're supposed to be covering up and send that to somebody. Because I'm going to tell you, young ladies, it's getting shared around. And I was a soccer coach, and I'd see these kids, and here's what they do. They'd be passing the phone, hey, check out us, all seekers. I was always in the front of the bus because I'm the coach. If they're real bad or rowdy, I'd have to go back and sit with them. Mm-hmm. But I knew. I'm like, this is not good. They're past whatever it is. There's probably some young lady sent a picture she shouldn't have, and they're all passing it back and forth to each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. Because I just knew they're boys. And I knew some of the stuff. They weren't just looking at Fox News and fantasy football statistics. Right. Yeah. I knew that was they probably were not doing their homework on the bus. They were doing other things. And so I look at that and I thought, you shouldn't send those pictures. That's why you shouldn't, because it becomes, once somebody screenshots it, when somebody saves it to their files, they can show it to anybody.
That's right.
Don't do it. And there's one way to make sure yourself and inappropriate pictures of yourself are not being passed around. Don't send them.
Bill, can I say 40 million Americans, you said 40 million Americans say they regularly visit porn sites. Right. You think about that statistic once and how much this has infiltrated our society in this country. Numbing people. I mean, we all go into kind of this numb position where, you know what? They're having a hard time with sex. You know what I'm saying? So maybe this is their way to get that or whatever. A little dabble, take it from a little dabble leads to a plunge. Right. And you will be in to where it's click after click after click after click, and you can't get out of it. I remember crying, saying, I can't stop. That is horrendous, man. It takes over your thoughts, 40 million people.
Well, I think
40 million.
You learn to objectify women too. And I think with the exploitation, by the way, I mean, we talk about all the time the Me Too movement and the exploitation of women. I'm amazed at how women exploit themselves. Yeah. Because I see it on TikTok, and that's another story. We'll get to that in a minute, but it's not porn. I mean, it's just scantily clad women. I mean, putting themselves out there. I'm sure they're thinking they're making money on it. And I think that's also stuff we should avoid.
But what we don't understand, though, what you just said there, it's not porn. It's just scantily. That's a trigger. For a guy like me, 10 years ago, that was a trigger that sent me back into the spiral.
Well, yeah, and I don't think you should watch it. I think that, to me, Mark, I'm jumping ahead a little bit on the stuff I want to talk about. I just think, as a guy who views social media, there is a difference between a woman who's good looking and climbs mountains and shows pictures climbing mountains. She's in hiking pants and a normal hiking shirt, and she's sexy or beautiful, and somebody who is intentionally sexual.
You're right.
There are people who are intentionally enticing. Yeah. And those are a problem because they're doing stuff to entice you to want more and to see more and so on and so forth. And that's a problem. True. And there's pages, I forget now, that is slipping my mind what these pages are, but it's basically they're just making their own porn and putting it out there for people to watch, which is sick. Anyway,
it is.
All right, guard your heart. Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And Matthew 15:19-20. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. These are what defile a person, but eating with unwashed hands is not. So he was concerned. They were concerned about, hey, they ate without washing their hands. Jesus Christ said that's not what you need to worry about. What's going on in your heart? Yeah. Because in your heart, that's where is adultery, sexual immorality. I have to guard my heart. That's my responsibility. What am I allowing? What is coming into my eyes is filtering down into my heart. This is like if I have a well on my property, I don't want to be pouring a bunch of chemicals over top of the well, because that could, in theory anyway, those chemicals could get down into my water supply. That's why I wouldn't let someone plant corn on my property. I didn't want all the fertilizer on my property, because my well's on my property. You know what I'm saying? Right. I don't even want to take a chance that some of that stuff's going to run in and contaminate my well. I'm not saying it would. I'm not sure, but I'm not going to take that chance. And what I'm saying is what you put in through your eye gates is going to get down into your heart. And this is a lot of things bother us in our heart. We allowed ourselves to see it. So we got caught up in the social media. And in this case, people were getting caught up in porn. Guard your heart.
I love this because Jesus is going to listen to this, the heart of the matter.
Right.
We can sit here and talk about the behavior of looking at porn all day long, and we won't get anywhere.
Right.
We have to get to the depth, to the root issue behind what's causing you to find your fulfillment in that. What's causing? Think about this: 2 hours. Let's just say 2 hours of just straight up watching and engaging in pornography. What makes you go there? What is it that your heart? What's missing in your heart, that God-shaped hole that you need filled? For me, it was rejection. It was abandonment, feeling those things. Anytime I felt rejected, I would run to it. I had to put those pieces together in my mind.
That was like your coping mechanism with
That's right.
Because it made you feel good.
That's right. Because you know what? Here's the sad reality. That screen will never turn you away.
Right.
Every one of them loves you.
Right.
In your mind.
Right.
Every one of them loves you. It's false. It's so false. It's rooted in evil.
Right.
And you will find yourself rooted in evil, staying in that company.
Right.
You have to figure out, what is this thing in my heart, out of the heart.
Well,
out of the heart.
But this is like, though, saying, if somebody commits adultery or if they're looking at porn and there's something wrong with their wife. It has nothing to do with their wife. Sometimes, at all. I'm not saying in adultery, maybe the wife's cutting the guy off and he fell into temptation, but I feel that if I were to engage in pornography, that it's just because I think women are beautiful and I think they're sexy, and,
you're following the lust of your eyes.
I would just say men love women. I mean, it's not hard to figure out why porn is so popular. I just think it's wrong. I think just because it's popular doesn't make it right. Just because I might want to look at a woman doesn't mean I'm going to look at a woman. There's plenty of times I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And porn is readily available. Now, here's what's kept me out of it, Mark. And I'm fortunate, I want to talk about Covenant Eyes too, because I think that, we need to put that out there, that there are programs, if you're struggling,
I have
you
a
put
list
on your computer. Good. We'll do that. But I still feel like for me, the way that I've stayed out of it is understanding there's no end to it.
That's right.
Well, the first step's going to lead to the second step. I don't have to worry about taking the second step if I don't take the first step. It's a lot of why I don't drink alcohol, because I saw some of my family members fall into alcoholism. I grew up around it. I saw what it did. I made a decision early on that it's just not something I'm interested in. And I know I don't have to worry about taking too much if I just stay away from it and just stick to, peach tea, lemon tea, on sweet tea. Yeah. If I just stay to that stuff and water, as opposed to taking that chance. I think with pornography, it's far more devastating because, with alcohol, you can argue, well, taking a sip of alcohol is not wrong. Right. And I wouldn't disagree with that. But I would say that taking a sip of pornography is.
It absolutely is.
And you shouldn't. But if you don't take the first step, you don't have to worry about the second step. Because I realized how endless it was, I never wanted to do it. Now, with that said, what are some of the programs that are out there to help people who are struggling?
Yeah, so we have Covenant Eyes is an accountability and filtering program that I'm a part of. I have that on every one of my devices that I use on a continual basis. I have 4 people that get a weekly report of everything I do online. And actually, Covenant Eyes went one step farther, because people that are addicted or cunning in pornography, I used to know how to get around those filters.
Right.
And I used to be able to figure that out, and everything from the outside looks great. But there's, private browsing on your web, your browser, that you can open up a private page and you can do whatever you want, and there's never a record of it. And you go into your history, your wife looks at your history, and there's nothing showing that you were on any inappropriate sites. And some of you even watching or listening right now are going, oh crap, he's revealing my secrets.
Right.
Well, let's get that secret out in the open. This is the only way you're going to overcome this thing. So Covenant Eyes has gone one step farther, where it takes screenshots of your screen every so often, and it will send screenshots of what you've been doing.
Wow.
To your accountability partners.
Wow.
For some of you, you might be saying, that's way too far. Well, do you want help or not?
Well, I think accountability in general would be a great thing, because maybe I don't need to be watching or looking at news or whatever it is all the time. Maybe this is not. Maybe I just don't need to be that much on there.
And so it's a blurred out image. So I'm a pastor, and I do a lot of counseling and stuff. And I talked to Covenant Eyes, and I said, listen, this concerns me big time. I don't want a screenshot of a counseling note or something like that, And they said, no. You can't. It's a blurred image. You wouldn't ever be able to open that thing up all the way. Nobody would ever be able to read what you have typed and all of that stuff. But it's a tangible way for your accountability partners to see what you're looking at.
All right, what's another good program?
Patterns of what you're looking at.
That one sounds great.
Covenant Eyes is fantastic. There's x3watch.com. I actually started with X3, but I ended up going with Covenant Eyes because I had somebody else that was on Covenant Eyes that I wanted to be accountability with.
And you like it.
And I just went with Covenant Eyes. I don't have a preference on any of these. You got to figure out which one works for you. x3watch.com. I'll have all these links in the show notes to make sure you guys have them. But other than, those two, there's practical things too, like going into your web browser and just setting certain things up in your settings. Simple to do. Filtering, not mature content, for example. Just go in there and filter it. You can, through your router, you can actually keep track of what's being viewed. Phones. So my children, my youngest son doesn't have a phone yet, but my older son does. I have Gab Wireless. That's a place you can go to. It's $23 a month or something like that. They can't send those sexting pictures and stuff back and forth with each other. They can't do it. It doesn't have internet on the phone. Right. It's a smartphone, but you don't have internet access. You don't have access to apps and stuff like that. Protect your children. That's a highly valuable thing to do. I sleep well at night knowing that my son's not looking at that stuff on his phone.
No,
what I'm saying?
I would tend to agree. Yeah.
I mean, so Gab Wireless is another one.
But I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, Jesus Christ said, look at this. He said in Matthew 5:28, I tell you that anyone who looks on a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. And I'm not saying that you didn't know, like my wife says, I notice somebody's pretty. I'm not saying you don't notice her pretty or attractive. But what you do with those thoughts, if you're having sex with that person in your mind, then obviously you're breaking down the boundaries and you shouldn't be doing that. On social media, when there are people being sexual, and I've talked to a friend, he doesn't even go to church, and he and I were talking about it one day, and he told me when I first got on TikTok, he goes, hey, there's going to be a lot of things you got to skip through. And I found that is true. I don't need to be watching it. So there's no excuses.
No.
There's no excuse. You know what you should be watching. You know what you shouldn't. If something's arousing that lust in you, that's not what you should be watching.
That's right.
Now, other people, they have a lot of motivational stuff. Okay, yeah, that I can go with, and hikers and whatnot. But you just have to know in your own heart that, hey, this is causing me to lust. If it is, then don't do it. And I think it really takes commitment.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, it takes a commitment to say, no, I want to be pure in God's eyes, and I want to be doing the right thing, and I'm just not going to look at these things, and I'm going to stay away from these suggestive things. But that's a That's what discipline is. I mean, you're not going to exist without some self-control. You're going to have a tough time in this life. There's certain things you got to set as goals for yourself and say, nah, this really is not good for my thinking. This isn't who I want to be. And if somebody would come in and see you looking at that stuff and you'd be like, and you'd be embarrassed about it, don't be looking at it.
Yeah. Job 31:1. I made a covenant with my eyes. How then could I entertain thoughts against another or a virgin?
That's a great.
Job says, I made a covenant. He made a commitment. That's a binding agreement is what a covenant is. It's a binding agreement with yourself.
Right.
I'm not going to look at another woman like that. That's what he says.
So here's our help. Our help is there's covenant eyes. Our help is saying the Bible says guard your heart. So what you allow into your heart is a huge issue. We should avoid lusting at any level. I don't care for social media or in real life. If you're lusting to somebody at work, you shouldn't be around them all the time.
No,
you know what I'm saying? Then
absolutely.
don't be looking at them all the time. Don't be thinking about them all the time. You got to take care of that.
Bill, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
Out of 1 Corinthians 7, this is so important. What we said earlier matters, okay? If you have a problem, you can't blame your spouse on this, okay?
Right.
Don't. They're not meant to carry that weight. This is a hard issue you have, okay? But I will say this. Scripture tells us, if you don't have self-control, get married, okay? You and I are married. So once we're married, I would say follow 1 Corinthians 7:5. Do not deprive each other.
Right.
So that you may, or except by mutual agreement for a specified time, devote yourselves to prayer, then resume your relationship. So listen, so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control.
Right.
You have to come to a place where you're actually admitting that you have a weakness there.
Right.
And then looking to your spouse, look to each other to fulfill each other's need in that area.
Look, and I think, you can make it fun, when it comes to intimacy and stuff that. And don't be boring. Don't be vanilla all the time. But I look at it and say, my wife should be satisfying my needs and my urges this way.
That's right.
And so, but it says renew your thoughts. And one of the things that I would tell anybody is you got to have control of your thoughts. Like Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, we take every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. It says in Romans 12:2, don't conform to the pattern of this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It says in Romans 8:5 that if we live according to the flesh, that's where we're setting our minds. If you live according to the Spirit, you have your mind set on what the Spirit desires. What are you setting your mind on? There are times where you got to renew your thoughts, and you just have to tell yourself, I'm just not going to think that way. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sit here and lust over this person. I'm not going to sit here and look at this picture over and over again, because there's stuff everywhere. And I'm not saying just porn. I'm saying there's just stuff everywhere. As a huge participant in social media, TikTok, Instagram, I have 3, not counting the church, I have 3 separate Instagram accounts. I have Facebook accounts. I run different pages on Facebook. Yeah, you see stuff coming up. I would say Facebook's not nearly, there are other, I mean, TikTok and Instagram are, I would say,
that's why I have a Facebook account and none else, because I just ain't even going to get involved in that stuff.
But what I would say is you have to make a decision to not think about certain things, to put your mind on wholesome things, not be driving down the road, having lustful thoughts. Just say, if you are, think about something else. Just think about something else. Just say, I'm not going to think about this person this way. I'm just not going to do it. And that can be done. I'm telling you, you can do that. I mean, there's certain people around my life, I'm like, no, I look at them like family. I look at them like, that's how it is. Yeah, no way. I'm just not going to do it. My mind is not going to go there. I'm just not going to. Excellent. And that's where it takes discipline, and you've just got to say, no, I'm going to renew my thoughts. I'm going to guard my heart. I'm going to avoid lusting. If you can just control yourself here and have some self-control, you'll be much better off. We appreciate you tuning in and listening. Though the show went a little bit longer, some of our other podcasts, but it's a very important podcast, a very important topic. If 50% of Americans are struggling with porn at least once a month, obviously some listening are having that same struggle. If you need our help, we'd encourage you to call us, get hold of us. You have further questions about Covenant Eyes, I would definitely talk to Mark about it.
Yeah.
And, he can help you to get set up or tell you what to do or where to find it. So it's on, you can Google it too, but we appreciate you tuning in and listening to this. You guys have a great and a blessed week.